A lot of people have faith in a historical Book of Mormon, and to the degree that faith is evidence for things hoped for and not seen, you should not expect the data to support what you have faith in, and they don't. The data pretty firmly points in the opposite direction of a historical Book of Mormon. And that's not to say that anybody who has faith in a historical Book of Mormon is somehow entirely irrational. It's just to say the data that exist right now point pretty firmly in a given direction. That's not to say it's impossible that any other position is true. It's just to say that's where the data point. And I've always tried to follow the data where it leads rather than try to get around the data to try to assert on an academic level something that conflicts with the data. And I've always been critical of apologetics because of
traditional Mormon apologetics?
Well, all apologetics. On my channel, I'm highly critical of just apologetics in general.
Traditional Christian apologetics.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. And I'm highly critical of that as something that is always trying to not follow the data where they lead, but get around the data, sidestep the data to get to a predetermined conclusion. It treats the data not as a guide, but as an obstacle to overcome. And frequently what I see, and this is not just within Mormonism, it's within broader Christian apologetics, is the goal is not necessarily to show that something is probable or even plausible. The goal is to show that it's not impossible. And I state frequently that as long as you can gin up the tiniest little sliver of not impossible, since your intended audience is people who already agree, they just want to feel validated in their agreements. As long as you can gin up the tiniest little sliver of not impossible, that is enough for that audience to hold on to. Apologetics is not aimed at critics. Apologetics is aimed at those who already agree. And I've been highly critical of that for a long time, and have tried to promote a perspective that tries to follow the data where they lead rather than get around the data to a predetermined conclusion.
So this is why I respect and follow people like Dan McClellan, because just as he said, he follows the data. Some disqualify him because he went to BYU. He was raised a Mormon. They exclude the fact that he went and did continuous studies at Oxford University in a secular school. But as he said, he follows the data. Wherever the data leads is where his thought process is going to go. I would also be a hypocrite if I didn't do that, because I grew up in a Baptist family. I grew up going to Baptist churches. I did all my extra studies in Baptist organizations until I was able to start traveling the world and studying in Europe, studying in North Africa, and studying in Israel. And I developed that exact same sense of just going wherever the data points me. For instance, when I was studying Eusebius's writings and realized that in around 313, when he wrote about the battle against Maxentius, he didn't mention anything about seeing a cross in the sky, seeing Jesus in Constantine seeing Jesus in his tent. He actually spoke about Sol Invictus. And then in 318, when the story changed, and all of a sudden now there is the account that includes seeing this cross in the sky, the soldiers painting the cross on their shields, seeing this vision of Jesus or Sol Invictus in his tent. This was told in Milan when he was courting Christian bishops and making Christianity legal within the Roman government, and then later being able to ascend up to Constantine's Ark and not seeing any depictions of Jesus or Sol Invictus, but seeing Apollo and seeing Mithra and seeing the soldiers' shields with no crosses on them. Generally, when these people would win these battles or conquer someone, their tribute to themselves would demonstrate all the attributes of what caused them their victory. Like when you see Titus's ark, you see him, the soldiers carrying away menorahs and things of that nature, things of when they looted the temple. You see signs of their victory. But with Constantine, I saw none of these. So I just went where the data pointed me, instead of going ahead and still accepting and believing in this story about Constantine having these visions. And then that data point continued to lead me to the place where Constantine was never baptized while being alive, that it was only after he was unalive that he was baptized at the behest of his mother, who had become Christian. So in all my studies, whether it upsets people or not, what I look for is wherever the data takes me. And I understand that that is hard for most laymen to be able to do that, because they already have a point that they're going to start with, and they have to end at that point. Most apologists have to end at the exact same point that they already had before they went into their studies. So I would encourage everyone that no matter where the data leads you, in whatever subject matter you're studying, go wherever the data leads you, and then adjust your lifestyle to fit the truth of wherever the data leads you, and be open and do peer review, looking at both sides of the coins, because as I always said, there's his story, there's her story, and then there's the truth that is somewhere in the middle. So y'all have a great day. And remember, always, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.